What's going on, everybody? Toby1 Shinobi here, and today we're going to teach you how to master the drop in Ranked Zero Build. If you find yourself dying off drop, like myself, then this video is going to be game-changing for you, because we are bringing in none other than Zeraxis himself, the legend, a very competitive Fortnite Zero Build player, one of the best players in the Shinobi Clan. I call him the dragon of the Shinobi Clan. Now, if you don't know who Zeraxis is, then after this video you gotta go check out his YouTube channel, Zeraxis, or his Twitch. He streams quite often and he is a blast to watch. This guy drops 30 bombs like it's nothing, like it's a pubs game in Unreal ranked solo lobbies. So he is here today to teach us how to master the drop and how to win early games, so let's get right into it.
Early game and late game, or rather end game, are basically the same thing in terms of, in early game you have as much space as you want, like tons and tons of space to work with, but you have no time whatsoever. And in late game you have no space to work with and no time to work with, but you know, they're other than like the difference in space, they're basically the same thing. You play it the exact same way. If you can't dominate like every second of time in like the first minute, you probably lose your off spawn.
It's an interesting way of looking at it, really, because you're making the same micro decisions that you're making off the drop are probably the same micro decisions that you're making in the end game that are going to get you killed as well. Exactly. Because time is so important, and doing the right thing at the right moment is so important.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that they match in loot. Like in the end game, you're usually down on loot. You're usually down on stuff that helps you survive. You don't always have access to a good position. You're forced to make things happen in a very limited time frame. It's the exact same thing early game. You don't have good stuff. You don't have everything that you want to work with, and you haven't gotten any items yet. So like the end game somewhat mirrors the off spawn in Fortnite. Like they're usually the same unless you're just like an end game god and you know how to save absolutely every piece of resources that you run across. In end game, it's, you know, the rotates, the sides of circles, and like where people are, all that is like factored into how they move. And in the off spawn engagements, it's their loot paths and how the other players are moving around the loot paths, forcing their rotation. So it's like there still is a rotation similar to the circle happening in the off spawn. Like the off spawn has a very strong way of forcing people to move around, while the end game, like the end game tells you that, right? Like with the circle and whatnot. But the off spawn is the same thing, but people just don't they don't feel it in the lower ranks because people aren't really following the optimal paths and whatnot. But once they are in like higher ranks, you're getting forced around by like the early, it may as well be an early game circle that's moving people from place to place because they are being forced to move. I know you're familiar with real-time strategy games and stuff, right?
Not like, yeah, I mean, I've played them like as a kid. I never got really into them, but like I've heard you talk about this, and I find it really interesting. I think that you get a lot of advantage on people by having this mentality, so go ahead and talk about that.
Well, in like real-time strategy games and in some MOBAs, there's like a concept of tempo, which is like how much time you have versus how much time your opponent has to execute something. So when you have a tempo advantage, you can be somewhere before they can be, or you can seize an objective before they can. And I think a large part of how players really control and like really dominate these like higher ranked games is when they learn to seize every tempo advantage they can, which is just making a move that you know is safe before your opponent makes that move. Because if you make like all the safe moves faster, then your opponent is oftentimes just put in a position of disadvantage, and then you can use like the sheer time advantage that you have to check them. When I say like you test them for a reaction because they're already behind, and when they're behind, they have to focus on what they're doing. You know, it takes a very mentally aware player to be able to react in the moment, but most players, they're just going to fall apart when you test them and they're like much behind on the tempo advantage of, they are not where they want to be. They're several seconds behind where they want to be. The items that they have, all that kind of stuff. If you can seize every single safe and good move on the board, then they're going to be forced to take the bad ones, which creates the opportunities you see to get kills, good positions, objectives, all that kind of stuff.
All right, so if you didn't catch what Zeraxis is saying here, is that you need to loot faster and more efficiently than your enemy, and you need to get yourself in a better position than your enemy faster than they can. So as long as you are looting very quickly and being smart smart about your loot path and keeping in mind angles and positions that your enemy could be holding, and then taking better positions in them while still looting, you are basically mitigating your risk. You are eliminating the chances of your enemy jumping on your head when you've got no loot, because you've put yourself in a good position and you're getting yourself decent loot to fight back with, and making sure you're not putting yourself at too much risk. So get an efficient looting path, get your loot, and then get to advantageous positions to find your enemy and see if you can take advantage of them when they're in a high risk situation and you're at low risk. So the tempo at which you loot and get to position in the early game is incredibly important and often overlooked. All right, now let's quickly take a look at Zeraxis' drop at Grimgate and see how he's looting, his loot path, how he's mitigating risk, and how he's getting advantage on his enemies. Your tempo per se, like talking about tempo, look at your loadout already, is pretty solid. And this is like moments after a drop.
Yeah, I always get a good drop. Like, I don't always get the best drop, but I always get a decent drop, because if you don't get a good drop, you're sold. It's over.
Yeah, I think that's maybe one thing I need to improve on in rank 2 is just like knowing where guaranteed chests are. Do you know where the guaranteed chests are here?
I actually don't. I should.
Yeah.
I don't. But I usually make up for it by like I know where all the possible spawns are, so I run through whatever I see. Like, I look around, I'm like, okay, these chests are spawning in. Because if you go back to the start, this is actually an interesting thing. Like, right here, you see that like I loot this chest out here, and then I loot the boat chest. There's a really good reason for that. It's because I'm looting all the most dangerous chests first while I see him gliding in. Because all these chests in the open, I won't have access to once he actually grabs a gun. So I'm looting all the chests that are dangerous to open before he has a chance to get a weapon. And then I get behind cover, and it's like, now I can loot up all the chests behind cover while having an extra 2 chests that I got from the open while nobody contested me for them.
There you go. That's a perfect example of the tempo and reducing risk right there. Is like, get as much done with as little risk as possible. And now you're already sitting pretty. I mean, you're like already ahead of on the drop. You had a better drop, and you still have time right now because the other guys dropped, right? So that's what's in your mind right now. Is like, I can still loot like one more chest.
Yeah.
Before anyone can really push.
I think at this point, I loot that chest, and I'm like, now, I got minis and a cola. I'm popping the mini, popping the cola. Then I'm just going to look for an opportunity while my shield rises to 100. Yeah, and you see, like, here, instead of rotating back into the fight, I go for the safe chest, because I know he's on the left side, like far left, which means that depending on where he landed, he either looted this whole spot, and he's over there, or he's on the left, and he didn't loot that spot. So I immediately rotate over to the loot that he couldn't have possibly gotten at this point. So it's like, it's completely safe loot, and because I know he's on the other side, there's no way that he's looted that entire building. So I go for the extra chests and extra loot, and it ends up being pretty nice. Just
watching this back, like looking for the micro decisions you're making. And also, like, when I think of you on a drop, I think of you just like killing the first person you see, and then like taking their loot, and then like looting and getting health first. But no, you're playing very smart, like a lot smarter than people probably realize. Like, you're getting good loot, and you're giving yourself very good chances, very good odds to win fights. Like, if you don't actively seek a fight if you don't have to, right? If somebody doesn't jump on you, you're kind of like, okay, loot first, shotgun and shields, pretty much.
Yeah, if anybody does jump on you in the beginning, I actually think that's a perfect opportunity to run away and start looting, because the reason they're jumping on you is because they have good loot. But here's how I like to think, right? If they have good loot 1 second into the game and they push you, yeah, they could have a perfect loadout, but it's more than likely they just got enough to push you, and they're like, okay, I'm winning with this loadout, I'm gonna push him. But if you manage to get away or like not take the fight, he's in a position where he has to go all the way back for more loot, and you're now rotating into new loot. So like, you've reset the time advantage, and now you have the time advantage because he pushed early with a gamble instead of playing safe and getting completely looted.
Yeah, and probably missed a few shots, and now he's low on ammo, and it's like, if he has to full commit to fighting you, and there's people behind him.
Yeah, like if somebody gets a good loadout, they often just throw the game by going for the aggressive play right off the start, it's a gamble play to go for a super aggressive play just when you get like 1 or 2 good items. You should still just like loot it up, get your bearings. Don't full send it into the first player you see when you get a loadout that's good enough to do so. Because early on, not everyone has the good loot, and now when you commit to that, it's like you're basically saying, I'm gonna give up all the chests in my location. I'm going to give up 10 to 20 seconds of time, and I'm going to accept that this player is going to control where I end up going unless I end up killing him fast. And that's not necessarily a good trade to make.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. Really quick, if you are enjoying this video, if you find it valuable, please consider smashing that like button, body slamming the subscribe button, and gently tapping the notification bell to get alerted every time I drop a new video. Thank you so much, my friend. All right, now we're going to quickly take a look at a couple of my drops in ranked and how I messed up and how I could have improved my tempo, my loot pathing, and mitigating risk, as well as getting better advantage on my enemies. So Zaraxis is going to analyze my gameplay and try to help me improve my drops. Coming into restored reels, get the volume.
Some nice damage.
This off drop fight here, like, is this something you would do?
It was good aim. Personally, the move that I would have done, a possibility, I think, would be, I don't like fighting with zero loot. I probably would have just rotated out towards the right once I saw the half pot and like looked for, I'd probably try to climb on the roof or look for a shotgun or something.
Okay, so that's the kind of decision-making feedback that I need, because if I'm dying off drop all the time, I'm thinking it's stuff like this, like ego challenging people off drop, thinking that I'm just gonna win with aim and movement, but I do stupid things because I get overconfident in the fight. And so, like in this situation, you with this
once I see that
combat AR, you see that, you're probably just gonna go for it and just hold a right shoulder on this and just like wait for him to make a move while you heal.
Either that or I climb out that side and then get on the roof, and then I pop my half bot because he can't escape me once I'm up there. Like, you know, he's gonna have to leave the building, and once I'm on top, his rotation to leave the building is much longer than mine to like move myself into vision of him. So I can just pop the half bot for free, and then he's panicking, thinking, oh, he's on my roof with 100 health, and now he's getting 50 more health, and I'm down everything, and I can't really leave. And then you can just like, you know, you can hunt down the fight until he has no options, and you should be guaranteed the kill at that point. And
you see third parties coming in, right? Like you can see more of the horizon. So like, yeah, this is the kind of feedback that I need, because it's like I kind of like have this feeling that I'm doing things wrong here and I could be doing them better. And that's the kind of feedback I need, is like, okay, yes, don't take this fight, because even if I do win this, right, there might be another guy that just roams in and cleans things up instantly. And that happens to me all the time. And it's because of this poor decision making, I think.
I think that, and you want to always check your opponent's moves before you fully commit. Like whenever I start playing badly in ranked in tournaments, I think it's because I start feeling desperate for some reason, and I go for like a one and done move, where Fortnite is more like a fighting game where you have to check your opponent and like reduce the amount of possible moves that they can make down to a manageable level that you can win.
Yeah, that's a great call there.
When it all depends on like the rank that you're fighting and what your rank is, because for me, if I fight a guy that like he knows every single option available to him, it feels the same way as like a newer player fighting another newer player, or like a champion player fighting a champion player. It's like the exact same feeling, because the more options you have to deal with, it like the more desperate you start feeling, because it's like there's too much my brain has to go through to work with this. But you do have to still like check what your opponent can do, and like taking that right peek and forcing him to react by like backing off is checking your opponent's moves, forcing him down to like making a predictable amount of outcomes available to you.
Right, yeah.
Because, you know, Fortnite is somewhat of a game of luck. So in like games of luck, you mostly have to reduce the amount of chance that you lose, because you can make it like almost not a game of luck if you reduce the amount of bad outcomes that can happen in a fight.
So I think what you're saying is basically you need to put yourself in a position that is low risk at all times, and then put your enemy in a higher risk position and kind of wait for them to make the bad move and then take advantage of it. So not playing entirely aggressive, but also playing quick, but not super aggressive, instead of letting them make the mistake. Is that right?
You've got to be aware of the opportunities available to you and what their chance of succeeding are. Because if you just make a play regardless of looking at the chance of you succeeding, then you're probably going to make a bad play at some point in the game, because you're not really taking into account what your opponent's going to do, what's going on the map, where all these different decisions. So it's like at certain points in the game you have to make like little awareness checks of how can I check to see what my opponent's options are. Well, I can test them by doing like a peek or something, or I can test my options by looking at the map and thinking about my strategies, or anything like that. And the more experienced you are, the more checks you do, and like the better timed they are.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so here's another drop in. I think another death off spawn probably, as is tradition for me.
Hey, don't feel bad. I have a 20% win rate now. I'll die a ton of games over and over.
Yeah, it's still pretty amazing. 20% at your level. So that guy doesn't know I'm here, I don't think.
Yeah, here you got to start moving for loot.
Yeah, like at this point, don't engage, right? This is probably my mistake.
Yeah, he's already looting, which is it's a big time advantage for you. Not bad damage, like.
Now, rewinding, what would you actually do here, though, if this guy is landing where he's landing and you've got this? Is this what you do, or do you just go off and loot more?
I don't like going towards the back here anymore because there's no god chest. So I probably would have gone to the left side of Underworld and tried to loot up.
Gotcha.
Finding a shotgun in any green area is the #1 priority. Like once you get a shotgun or a burst SMG, it's kind of game over for everyone else.
Yeah. Okay. So if I had a gatekeeper, then yes, you'd make the move that I did. Or if I had a combat, then yes. But right now, without shields and this TAC AR, I should not be doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, you can land back in that puddle if you want, but like going back there at this point is like it burns through all your available time. Like if you think about how much time you've burned sitting here, it's like 10 to 15 seconds, where if you were on the left side, you would already have a decent loadout and possibly shields.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. Like what you're saying is like, I think a big part of my mistakes and why I'm dying off drops so much is that I sit here and, like you said, burn time where other people are all looting and they're getting, better tempo than me, getting looted up, and I'm like trying to catch up. And like, I just don't have that internal clock in my head like you do, like that strategy game clock, which is like, hey, your opponent is buffing themselves up and you're just still sitting here with a blue TAC AR and 5 bandages. What are you doing, kid? And taking shots that like aren't really winning you the game. This isn't gonna win you the game. Don't do this. There's also 2 other people in this POI probably. So
it's not necessarily terrible to like look for these kind of things, but it's like the time in which you stop looting and do that. Like it has to have how you loot has to have synergy with how you look for fights, right? Like you've got to look for loot with the time that you look for loot, and when there's like optimal chances to take fights, you're going to be looking for those. But if you're looking for fights during the time where you could be getting guaranteed loot, it's like that fight is not a very high probability that it's even going to happen. So you may as well be taking, the bird in the hand versus like, 2 random things out there somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't think that's how that phrase goes, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. It's like, I should be weighing my options here and probably disengage. At this point, I'm too deep into it and come out on a left shoulder again. And this guy just hits better shots than me. But see, I'm already dead though. Even if I win this fight, right, I die.
100%.
Because I have footsteps coming in. So this is like, I think the biggest thing for me is like, just need to like learn to chill out on my drop and not go for picks like this, especially when I don't have like the loot to back it up.
Yeah, you don't want to be making plays with like this little information and this little time advantage, because this is what I don't like about not having good loot and a good tempo, is that once you get put behind on tempo like this, you're like negative on every move that you do, is getting like everyone else is already in position to look for opportunities. So it doesn't really matter what you do at some point. If you've wasted too much of your tempo, then other people, like everything that you do is an opportunity to them. Like the guy behind you is looking for an opportunity on you. This guy is looking for it. You know, there might be another guy in Underworld who looted the back part, who is then going to look for an opportunity on everybody. But because you're so far behind on time, your disadvantage just becomes amplified the more and more you lose time.
Yeah. All right. And to sum it up, basically, time can either be your enemy or your friend, and you need to make it your friend. Be quick on your drop, have a high tempo, do not take risky engagements on the drop, try to play as safe as possible, keep stacking advantages, and put yourself in good positions while you're looting so that if you get jumped on, you can still fight. Be thinking about the high risk locations and the low risk locations, and loot the high risk first while your enemy is still looting so that they don't catch you in a bad position. And then continue your loot path, your rotations, your positioning with your enemy's location in mind and their options. Always be cutting down their options as best as you can. Be thinking about what they could possibly do and try to plan around that. And if you do this right and you put yourself in a good position at all times and you narrow your enemy's options, they're often going to run out of options and find themselves doing something incredibly risky, which is going to get them killed and give you an easy fight, just like Zeraxis talked about earlier. All right, now let's do a quick drop in ranked Zero Build solos with Zeraxis coaching me and see if we can implement some of this tempo he's talking about and mitigating risk and figuring out where your enemy is and taking advantage of their disadvantages. All right. I've got a guy. I didn't look at my... Okay, so he's blending over there.
Keep looting, keep looting. Try to get a shotgun. There we go.
Okay, I got jump pads and health. Should I jump on this guy?
Jump him, yeah. Just pad out. He's probably in the building to your left.
There he is.
Nice.
All right. So that right there, that's when you jump people. You got the loadout, you know their location, you've got shields. I was way ahead on that guy. All right, so I need to be worried about people rotating in right now, huh?
Yeah, your timer for the hill, like there's like a lab up there or something.
Yeah.
Could be about now.
All right, so the things I need to be worried about are here, here, and here. Even this dock. Right? Those are kind of like my 4 options. All right, guys, I hope this video was helpful. Always a pleasure to speak with Zeraxis about Fortnite and many other things. The guy just has a wealth of knowledge and looks at the game from such a unique perspective. Always awesome to learn from him. And if you haven't watched him yet, go to his YouTube channel, Zeraxis, or his Twitch. Check him out. You will not be disappointed. All right, y'all, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like on it. It really, really helps. And consider using code TobyWanShinobi in your Fortnite item shop. I'd really appreciate it. Have yourself a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening. Shinobi out.